one this morning.
Well,
Trying to
great.
see what's on here. We've got, okay, quite a few. Great. Well, boy, this element, yes.
One other thing, Karen, I'm just going to say, you know, a lot of coaches attend a boot camp on Saturday morning, a lot of watching the video, the recording. So we're just welcoming. I just started the recording. I want to welcome all of you. Also want to introduce you to Karen Anderson. Karen is an amazing health coach, has helped so many. When Karen first became a coach, she was a school teacher. And we've all learned a lot from Karen, and I know she'll do a great job of facilitating today on element 3. So take it away, Miss Karen.
Okay, welcome everyone. So I got busy a couple days ago getting into this element, and how many people read the whole thing, did the whole thing, read the whole book, and Dr. A's book? I'm not seeing everybody, but there. Yeah, it's meaty, isn't it? It is really, really meaty. And so it was very interesting to me thinking about this with clients. This is definitely one of those ones I think that would take 2 weeks, don't you? I mean, it's a lot, but wow, is it powerful? I mean, amazing, right? So I thought that we could just kind of start by saying, you know, kind of seeing how people reacted to it and doing it on their own. I thought the examples that he gave were just brilliant. You know, I've heard the one about the push up and woman on the wall floor, but the whole idea, in fact, I was so excited about this. I was talking to my husband about it all during dinner last night because I just thought that it's going to be so great for our clients to see how you can break everything down into little those micro habits. I know we all talk to our clients about that, but this just really nails it down. So and one of the things that, you know, I don't know if anybody else has been, but with this with the app and the water, I'm like, why is it 2 glasses of water? You know, our clients are going to be drinking 8 glasses of water, and why is it 2 glasses of water? Well, it's so clear when you read this element that he wants them to start with something they can be successful with. So I don't know how we'll do that because we tell our clients that they should be drinking all this water right from the beginning, but he wants people to be successful. So he starts with something really small. Pat, are you muted? Oh,
yeah. Okay. But did you notice after I had 21 days of the water, mine went from 2 to 4. So how amazing
okay.
in the app, yeah, that it was, I'm like, oh, just so we were all hollering about 2 glasses, you know, they got to correct that. Same as, you know, and all of a sudden mine turned to 4. And then I looked back and there was a notification, you know, you've done it for 21 days in a row. We upping your habit.
Right.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I found the same thing. Mine also increased to 4. And I think, you know, even going back to the Optavia guide where it says like, stand for an extra 2 minutes a day, drink an extra glass of water in the micro habits in the journal at the end of the Optavia guide. And I was like, that's ridiculous. That's so silly. What is standing for 2 minutes a day going to do? But when I heard Dr. Anderson describe the power of micro habits, then it really made more sense to me.
Right. So it will be interesting how we're going to integrate this with our coaching. You know, in the actual coaching guide, it doesn't really, it says, what micro habits do you want to install? So, I mean, most of our clients I mean, the vast majority are working on weight management, right? So we would be installing, you know, they would be installing the eating every 3 hours, you know, our program. Um, it may be though, you know, a micro habit would be on that, you know, trying a new lean and green recipe once a week, you know, something like that, you know, that, because I know I have a lot of clients that act like that is the end of the world for them to cook this dinner every night. You know, for people that don't cook and eat fast food, that's a big deal. So so in terms of the white micro habits with our weight management, what are you thinking are some other things that we might want to be encouraging our clients to do?
I can pipe up.
Yeah.
You know, don't we all suffer from this? Look at us in our coaching goals. Look at us in our life goals. We all live, Anderson has told us for years, right? I've been around 10 years. Yeah, Cheryl? You know, don't do comparative reality. And I think we all try and come up with the answer of what we're expected to ultimately do. We're all expected to go bigger, grow further in our personal life and professional life. We set things way beyond, and when we fall short, we spend our energy and our time saying what we didn't do, what we should do, what we could have done, what whatever. Whereas I see this as being able to encourage our clients of, let's start here, and what's the next step, and what can you do, and let's go there, and let's build, and celebrating it much more of a micro habit. And the same for our coaching. You know, I love Cheryl, and she always asks me, Deb, what do you want? And what did I say for 10 years, Cheryl? I don't know what the hell I want. Stop asking me that. Or, oh, this is recorded. I am so sorry. Anyway, stop asking me that, or I am going to beat you, you know? And I think that I have lived literally for 10 years thinking, what do you want, Deb? And having to have the answer. And I think this chapter is, Anderson says in it, in this element, this is the most important element in creating sustainable transformation for your weight, your health, your well-being, is to take ownership and to be able to set those cues, set those rewards, you know, or the action, and then be able to see, you know, from the cue to to what you do to the reward, and tying it to immediate, and then ultimately where is that going to take you? Because I think we all think we have to know the answer instead of just cueing it. And I have already started coaching my coaches and my clients with this element, saying, you know, what's just the next step? I just did a health assessment with somebody this morning who's like, how are we going to get started? And I was like, well, you know, and I used this to talk about the things to focus on outside of the food. And by the end of the conversation, she's like, wow, this is a lot more than about a diet, isn't it? Wow. You know, so I think that what we can do is to use this element to be able to actually focus people on things that are doable, one step at a time, and not the ultimate. And I think what we focused on is, here's what you need to do. And we've coached people on how to help them through when they've fallen short, instead of how to celebrating when they've actually had the wins. And I think the expectations have been a little too high, too early. So, I mean, I'm already using it for just drink 2 glasses of water, chew your food 5 times when you're busy, and 15 to 20 times. And somebody goes, I found I need 25. And I was like, yeah. So, I mean, I think all those are just really important in this particular element of celebrating those wins, and where you can go beyond the threshold rather than I've fallen below what I thought I should do.
Yeah, that's great, Deb. I loved that too, when he talked about doing his squats every hour, setting the timer to do 1 squat. But then usually he did 5 to 10, but he always did 1. And I think that's a really interesting way to encourage people instead of, I mean, really, we all have clients that do this program perfectly. They do it perfectly and they don't falter, right? But then we have a lot of clients that do falter, or the people that do it perfectly then have to come back and then they start faltering. And I love this idea of setting the bar lower in terms of, so that they don't feel like a failure. I think that's the biggest problem that we have, is that people end up feeling like a failure if they can't do it perfectly. And,
I agree. And the importance of the daily action.
Right.
What can you do every single day?
Right.
Because without the action every single day, it won't become habitual.
I thought
miss a day, but can't
when
miss
he
3.
said 3 days, if you go 3 days without doing it, you have to start over. I mean, in essence, you're starting over. So if your goal is, if you have a client who never drinks water, and I just signed somebody up this week, and I said, how much water do you drink? And she said, I really don't drink water. I was like, really? I mean, not 1 or 2 glasses. I mean, she said, I just really don't like the taste of water. I drink other things, but I don't drink water. So I asked her if she was willing to work on that, you know, that this was, we really, really believe this is a very important part of health. So I did start her with 2 glasses a day. And she's been doing that, but she says, oh my gosh, that's so much water. It's interesting, you know, 2 glasses a day. She feels like it's so much water. Carrie?
Yeah. So my coach and I, or one of my coaches and I, have been working on using this, and I know I haven't been on here, but one of the things that we have noticed, and maybe some of you have too, is that element 10 is on water. And our Optavia Guide 5 and 1, our first goal when you open the little back of the book, as you all know, is water. So the thing that we're considering, and I know like going rogue already, would be to direct them to element 10 in the life book, which is short and manageable, just to have that information, to so kind of be like doing 1 and 10 to like, and I know that's going rogue and maybe nobody wants to hear that, but when I realized that like 7 through 10, those are like fueling every 3 hours and water. And so I don't know, that's, I
haven't gotten that far, Carrie.
Well,
so,
I was shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh, because these are so meaty up front and so important. But at the same time, we always start with water, right? We start with fueling every 3 hours, and fueling every 3 hours is element 8. And I just thought it's worth noting that. So, but
how do you guys feel about that?
I think it's fine. We have, you know, we tell people to skip around. If they are having trouble with water, that seems perfectly logical. If on the health assessment, I don't have a problem, I love water, I don't think you need to go there. But, you know, if somebody has a need, that's the whole point of becoming familiar, I think, with the material, is so we can direct people. If they have an issue right now, then we can direct them.
Because otherwise, by the time they're actually getting to those elements 7, 8, 9, 10, which are the basics of our program, truly, the fueling every 3 hours, the drinking the water, they're going to be like, what, month 3 in, if we're doing it that. Hopefully they already have those skills. So I kind of felt like, I don't know, I'm sensing at this point, I'll be having them do like 2 at a time or back and forth to the front of the book and into the middle of the book. But I just thought I'd point that out and see what you all thought.
Pat?
Yeah, I agree with Cheryl and Carrie also. I mean, I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. Especially, you know, looking at number 10, this might be a great place for Karen's client to start. But, you know, sometimes, and so I think we have that freedom on an as needed basis. When you recognize, but that's the importance of the coaches knowing what are the elements. In the other book, if somebody was having trouble with sleep, we would send them to the sleep, or inflammation or whichever chapter. So I don't think that's a problem whatsoever. In the beginning, I think we have to not forget there's so many that come that if we, and they're so ready and they want to do this program, that if we tell them to drink a minimum of 64 ounces of water a day, they do it just because we told them.
Exactly.
So for that client, you just, use, so I think you use your own discretion and depending on the challenge of the clients. But I appreciate you bringing it up, Carrie, because, we need to have flexibility. As we know, every client is different.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great things about us doing this now
Yeah.
is like I haven't gotten to element 10. So
yeah, it all connects, right? It's all the cue, action, habits, micro habits, and it's just figuring out how, you'd love for them to have it all at once.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I try, like with the old system, I would memorize what chapters were which titles, and I mentioned this last week too, but I have made a note to remember page 91, because page 91 is this story about the grandma who wanted to lift her kids and started with she couldn't do. We've heard that story, and I've said that story, told so many people that story when I'm starting them, but it's so nice to be able to now say, when especially if they're feeling overwhelmed on a health assessment, talk about skipping around, and you could just say, we're just going to start with where you're at, and you're feeling this resistance or pushback because they can't do it all, whatever. I would send them right to 91 page. I'm going to remember page 91 because that's the entire element is summed up there. So it's I think it's going to be nice to have that to send them to for a minute.
I agree.
And I think we can use element 2 when they identify their readiness and their willingness, and is it doable for them to identify those points that when they're, what you need to do in terms of referring them to other sections or other elements specifically. So
there's a quote on page 105 of his book, and it's a quote I have here right by my computer, but this one, we first make our habits and then our habits make us. And I think that's just a really good lead in to what the habits of health is all about for a brand new client, that we keep talking about these habits and habits of disease or habits of health. So I love the way he worked that in. This book is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm just like in awe, thinking of him sitting there for 2 years or whatever he did, writing this book, and it's just, I am so excited for our clients to get their hands on it. I'm like, I want to photocopy it or something right now. So when I look at the coaching guide, the things it says to ask them are, what does this element mean to you right now? And what does this element give you the opportunity to reflect on? And what actions are you going to take as a result of this element? They seem kind of general to me. I think we're going to have to lead them a little bit more with that personally. But so kind of the thought is we're going to have them read this chapter, do this element in the life book, read any of the book that it suggests you read, and then we're going to go over it. Correct? This does not sound like a 5-minute call to me to go over this. Pat, you're muted.
I agree. It's like, but I think that is the point behind it. And sometimes with some of these questions, I know in this particular one, and I've been exposed to structural tension, but what came to me was like in my quest to get my motion back to where I wanted to be, all of a sudden through this element, I realized, okay, what micro habits can I do? Well, instead of just trying to go for 10,000 steps, how about walking morning, noon, and night? You know, little pieces, micro, when you can. And, you know, and so that came to me. So I think if we could hone into some of these questions, did something inside you awaken to how, you know, doing things in micro, you know, pieces can help you to achieve something that is a goal to you, kind of thing. So I think as coaches, you're going to have to, just draw it out. And I think almost the whole weekly call is going to be on, you know, reviewing some part of the element. But this may be one that it may take them a couple of weeks to get through. So then you probably could be talking about a couple of calls too.
Right. I think it would take most people 2 weeks to do this.
That hasn't been my experience yet. I'll just share that in element 3, when we got to the end where the questions are, you know, what does it mean to you? What did you become more aware of and have a chance to reflect on? If they've answered those, I just listened to that. But then the key is, what are the actions you're going to take? And then on those actions, my question is, in relation to the 6 micro habits that they addressed in the previous chapter, is that action appealing to you? Is it achievable? And is it easily activated for you? And just focusing on those things that are, and then saying that over time you will come back and revisit this as you add in a focus on different elements, you know, different micro habits. Right now, let's do it with this that you feel like is appealing, achievable, and easily activated, and then let's practice it with this. When we get this, let's just come back at some point. I'll make a note that we revisit this this is working well here. Now, how do you feel in terms of what you said in the previous chapter, that you were ready? You know, maybe not quite as ready right now. Are you more ready based on this experience? And so that's how I've been using it, not to spend too much time on trying to cover too much, but taking something that is appealing, achievable, and easily activated, and then building on that.
Okay. Has anybody else done with any of their coaches or people they're doing this with? It is very clear to me with exercise, just like Pat just said, how perfect this is for trying to lead people along that instead of this huge goal. You know, your 10,000 step thing is a perfect example. 10,000 steps is great, and we all know that's the, you know, pinnacle. That's what we want to be doing. But, you know, for somebody that's very, very inactive and doesn't leave the house a lot, they might only be getting in 2,000 or 3,000 steps a day, if that. So, you know, just taking them along slowly. And if that's something that's, maybe it's just taking the dog for a walk twice a day instead of once, or
The other thing I just thought I would offer is that in terms of the cue, what I've chosen to do is to take, when their new order comes up for their, you know, are you going to move forward for the Premier Club, that becomes the cue, and ask, was that a good time that we could cue to see where you are on these micro habits, and then go back to assessing if there anything else that you feel like you're ready to move forward on. So instead of, are you ready to place your next order, that becomes my cue, how he talks about it in this chapter. That's becoming my cue to how are we assessing, how are we doing in the 6 micro habits, and are we ready to move on to another one, or are we continuing to build this one? So where he talks about the importance of using a cue, I'm trying to use things we already have in place instead of setting up something else.
Right.
That sounds great. I also really like the questions that are in number 2. I mean, I think, again, if we are listening to when we listen to our clients, some of these will pop out and seem much more appropriate than other ones. The first set are the ones they're answering, and we can touch on them, but they're so general.
Yeah.
I really think that, and we won't have time to ask all these questions, so we're going to have to listen and pick them out. But I like the specificity of this group.
I do too. I do too. I love that one. How will tomorrow be better because you've begun to install these habits today? You know, I think, yeah, those are great. So it's 9 o'clock, and I know that that's when we usually end it, but does anybody else have any thoughts, or anybody that didn't get a chance to say anything that wants to, or, you know, questions for the group, other ideas? Nope. Well, I know you are too, just chomping at the bit to get these in. Did we have any idea? I mean, is it going to be after conference they're available? We don't know. Just don't know, right? No word yet.
I wouldn't even touch on it yet, only because, you know, who knows? Who knows? I mean, we're watching this thing with Helen Irwin, you know, just get backed up, and I don't know what's going on until we get Dr. A back on our ground. I think things are just kind of, you know, who knows? And there may be a definite plan. We may hear something. But he was pretty clear that until the coaches had a handle on this, clients weren't going to touch it. In my own mind, I always thought conference would be a great time. But, you know, we're still 7 weeks away. So I love going over this together. I really want to encourage. I hope we have coaches watching the recording, only because it's amazing work. But I know I did a call today with this week with a coach that was an element ahead of me, and I didn't feel I was at my best because, you know, so I really hope coaches get into this so that we can be the best we can be for our clients. So I just want to encourage all coaches, you know, we can start at any time. So I hope they are. I think it's great information. I love the exchange of ideas. Kathy, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to share something?
Oh, I was just going to say, to Karen's question, you know, if they're really going to stick to making sure the app is okay, and getting all the feedback and doing that, I can't imagine, Karen, that that's going to be done before conference. So I mean, obviously none of us know really. But I'm with you, Pat. I think that doing these elements, it's a lot more meaty, and it's a lot more, and we're used to this. We're used to looking deep. We're used to digging deep into what we think and what we want and all of that, because we ask each other that all the time. But I found that, you know, and especially I'm looking forward to, you know, doing, I started element 4 already, and I mean, it is super meaty. And so, you know, 4 and 5 are, wow, they're digging deep. So it's going to be an interesting journey for us. And then to distill that down to Deb's point, or to Karen's, whoever said 5 minutes. I mean, I don't know.
That's why I really think letting them do an easier one with the fuelings or the water, which seems more like, ooh, and then do the meaty ones at the same time. I don't know, because I'm afraid too much meaty, like for us, we're already like, wow, this is a lot. And so for someone starting where our clients often start, I think they're going to just go, oh, forget it. And I don't want them to forget it. So I want them to have manageable success, right? That's what we're all about. Like, look, you can do this. This is good stuff.
Although,
so, I don't know.
If we're going to be, not everybody's going to do these as fast as we're doing them.
True.
I mean, don't you think clients are going to, did you do anything in your element? Yeah, I read a paragraph. You know how it goes. So we won't have to do the whole element every week with our clients, I don't think. But we'll ask them what they got done. So we'll have to pick and choose. Just take them again where they're at, and encourage them to continue to work at it. I'd be interested to know if anybody has any ideas on how we're going to move them through it. So many of my over the 12 years, people don't want to read. You have to tell them to put it in the bathroom and read when they go to the bathroom, for pity's sake. So,
Or the nightstand,
I think they'll get excited actually. What?
Or the nightstand, 1 page a day.
I think they'll get more excited about this because this is pretty cool.
I thought about that too, Cheryl, exactly. And especially like that element 3 that we're just doing today, I thought, okay, how would I approach this with somebody who doesn't want to go through all that I went through to get this done? And I thought I would pick for them something that I've heard them say as a micro element and say, hey, you know what, did you ever think about just chomping this up into a tiny little piece? And on page X in your life book, there's instructions for that. So maybe you could go back next week and look at just that little tiny piece and think about some way you could take this, goal and make it tiny and doable. And we could talk a bit, because I'm having the same struggle as I'm forward thinking to taking this out to 40 clients at a time. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I really think too, and I'm sorry, but I'll just really think too that the reason we see so much meat in this is because we know what we know. I'm not so sure our clients are going to see this quite as meaty as we do, because we're like going, holy smokes, and they're going to not be there yet. So I think they're going to see it maybe not quite as intimidating as we think they will.
And we're not going to have everybody do it. I mean, let's be realistic. As much as we want them to do it and as excited as we are about it, I have clients who I could not get them to do the books. I would talk to them about it each week. We would have a little thing we would talk about. But I mean, they're so busy. It's an unbelievable feat for me to get them on the phone instead of a text sometimes. So, I think for the people that are ready and are really, really get the whole idea of how this has to change, everything has to change, they're going to embrace it more. Who I think this is going to be unbelievable for is people that are starting over, people that have done the program. They've had success, and then all of a sudden they're slipping back in their ways, and they come back to you and say, okay, I'm gonna, I need to do this again. I think that to be able to say to them, okay, let's do it again, but we have to do it really differently. Do you realize that that these are not, ingrained habits yet? And are you willing to work with me on it now and approach it differently? I mean, it seems like that will be a group. It's really nice that we have this real support for them for the people that haven't made it like in their head yet. We all have those. Pat?
I think Deb Mel's been trying to say something, and I think we need to wrap up or I can turn the recording off just for it not to. I love the discussion. Debbie, go ahead. Then I'll turn Karen, we'll let you say goodbye. I'll at least turn the recording off.
I think one of the things that I've been saying to people, and I agree, it falls differently on the ears of someone who's a returning client, but I do bring up during the journey kickoff call, I always use that infographic of the 6 steps to optimal health. And I say, most of us, our heads are right here on step 2. And, all we want to know, I know about all that other stuff, but I just want to lose the weight. I know I have to deal with all these other things, but I'm just right here. And that we've learned that people need to connect with all 4 elements in order to make this a lasting change. And I will usually go back to their why and say, I know you want to accomplish this and you want to get to a healthy weight. I know you don't want to gain it back again, right? And they agree. And I say we have 4 components. If you just do the food part, the nutrition part, you're doing 25% of the program. If you're doing the food and the health coach, you're doing 50% of the program. You're leaving out another 50% of the program. And when I use the numbers in that way, I think it hits people differently. Not going to pretend that they all become 100% magically, but I think it makes them realize that our program is more than just eating some bars and drinking some shakes, even though that's where their mind is at the beginning.
Deb, I love that, using the percentages. I love, that's what, you know, we all get so much from each other. That's great, Deb. Thank you. Well, listen, guys, I think we need to wrap it up. Carrie?
Oh, no, I was saying bye.
Oh, okay. It was good being on with all of you, and we'll do element 4 next week, right, Pat?
Yes, led by Deb Sesker next week.
Great, wonderful, great seeing you all.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to shut the recording off.
Okay.